Hi, I'm Victoria Young, and I'm the founder of On Your Side Tutoring. Today, we are going to look at reduced, restricted relative clauses in the subject. There are three very clear situations in which these can be reduced. So without further ado, let's get started. As a review, a restrictive relative clause consists of a group of words containing its own subject and verb that identifies a preceding noun phrase. For an example, the women who were wearing pink sunglasses just stole my Mercedes. So, relative clauses are oftentimes called adjective clauses because they behave exactly the same way an adjective does by modifying a noun. However, the form is not typical for an adjective because English adjectives come before nouns, like chocolate milk. Chocolate comes before milk. The example above, the women who were wearing pink sunglasses just stole my Mercedes, identifies a subgroup, which is what restrictive relative clauses do. So out of the group of women, there is a portion of women who are wearing sunglasses. That's this portion in the pink. The relative pronoun who is selected because the clause is modifying a human subject, women. In some situations, we can reduce the restrictive adjective clause or relative clause appearing in the subject by deleting the relative pronoun and the form of be that follows while retaining its meaning. This can clearly be done when the noun being modified is followed by a present participle, a past participle, or an adjective followed by a prepositional phrase. Let's look at the present participle example. The women who were wearing pink sunglasses just stole my Mercedes. You might run across a sentence like this that is reduced. If you notice, wearing is a present participle. Those are the ing verbs. So how do we identify the reduced relative clause? Well, first of all, these take practice and time. So you have to be patient with yourself. And after some practice, you will start to identify these. So there are some steps. Locate a group of words that identifies a noun phrase that starts with a present participle, a past participle, or an adjective followed by a prepositional phrase. And then try to add a relative pronoun, that or who. These are probably the most common for the restricted relative clauses. You might run across which every once in a while, but for restricted relative clauses, that is used a whole lot more often than which. Okay, so the relative pronoun and a be verb. So let's look at the past participle example. The young girl stolen by the giant was last seen picking flowers. Okay, so again, we're looking at a past participle. So try to add a clause marker. We're going to select who because it's a human subject, and was. The young girl who was stolen by the giant was last seen picking flowers. If it's an adjective, a prepositional phrase will follow it. The cup full of coffee just fell off the table. The cup, non-human subject, we're going to use that. The cup that was full of coffee just fell off the table. Finally, if it's a relative clause, the clause marker can be replaced by the noun it's modifying. So you will come across some clauses that you might want to make sure that you are, in fact, dealing with a relative clause. And this is a step, a test that you can perform to make sure you're working with a relative clause and not a different type of subordinate clause. Okay? So what we can do is identify the clause that was full of coffee and replace, see if you can replace the clause marker with the subject that the clause is modifying. In this case, the subject the clause is modifying is the cup. Okay? So we're going to replace the cup for that. The cup was full of coffee. And yes, you have a grammatical sentence. So this is indeed a relative clause. However, this is English and there are exceptions to the rule. In some subject form restrictive adjective clauses, the relative pronoun can simply be added. So these are some situations where you don't need to add a be verb, okay? And this is actually the most common type of reduced subordinate clauses that you're going to find. And these can be some of the other types of subordinate clauses too, okay? So let's look at this example. In the silvery moonlight, the village street that she knew so well seemed completely different, okay? So all you need is the relative pronoun, okay? And notice that the word immediately following is not one of those three situations that we talked about: a present participle, past participle, or an adjective followed by a prepositional phrase, okay? So you can practice with your favorite reading. So what I want you to do for this is to find one restricted relative clause in the subject that is of the three types that we talked about. That starts with a present participle, past participle, or adjective. Okay. There is only one in this passage in the subject. Okay. They're not as plentiful as the other types of reduced clauses, but you do run into these. Okay. So go ahead and read this and try to identify that. You can put the video on pause and I will show you the answer. There you go. If you have any questions or suggestions, please go to www.onyoursidetutoring.com and shoot me an email. I'm Victoria Young and I create these videos because I'm on your side. Thank you for watching.